The ice planet Helion 7 was dying, and Marcus knew it. The winds howled through the abandoned mining station where he'd taken shelter, carrying crystals of frozen methane that scraped against the metal walls. 3 weeks since his transport ship crashed. 3 weeks of rationing protein bars and recycling the same stale air. 3 weeks of wondering if anyone would come. He pressed his gloved hand against the frosted window, watching the twin suns set on the horizon. They were dimmer than when he'd first arrived, their light bleeding away as the planet drifted further from the system's center. In another month, Helion 7 would be a frozen tomb. He'd likely be dead before then, either from starvation or the cold that seeped through every crack in the station's failing heating system. Marcus turned away from the window, rubbing his arms for warmth. That's when he saw it, a light moving across the ice fields. Not the harsh white of a rescue beacon, but something softer, pulsing with colors he couldn't quite name. Blue-green like deep ocean water, shot through with silver threads that reminded him of starlight on snow. His breath caught. Hallucination, maybe. Oxygen deprivation did strange things to the mind. But the light grew brighter, closer. And Marcus found himself moving toward the airlock before conscious thought caught up with instinct. His hands shook as he sealed his helmet and cycled through the pressure door. The cold hit him like a physical blow, even through his thermal suit. -200 degrees and dropping. He had maybe 10 minutes before his suit's heating failed, but the light called to him, drawing him across the ice with a pull. He couldn't explain and didn't want to resist. She appeared from within the glow like a figure emerging from water. Tall, impossibly graceful, her form wrapped in flowing garments that seemed woven from the same light that surrounded her. Her skin held a faint luminescence, pale silver with undertones of blue. Her hair floated around her shoulders in defiance of gravity and wind. But it was her eyes that stopped Marcus in his tracks, large and almond-shaped, filled with galaxies of sorrow. "See me?" she said. And her voice resonated not in his ears, but somewhere deeper, in his chest, in his bones. After so long, someone finally sees me. Marcus's rational mind screamed warnings. Alien, unknown, danger. But his heart, that treacherous organ, recognized something in her gaze. Loneliness. The same crushing isolation he'd felt every day since the crash. The same emptiness that had haunted him long before he ever left Earth. "Who are you?" he managed, his voice crackling through the helmet speaker. "I am Seraphine," she replied, stepping closer. The light around her pulsed warmer, and Marcus realized with shock that the killing cold had retreated. "Once I was queen of the ethereals, ruler of 17 star systems, guardian of 1,000 worlds. Now I am nothing. An exile. A ghost. Why?" The question escaped before he could stop it. Her expression shifted, pain flickering across features too perfect to be human. "Because I chose mercy over survival. My people faced extinction, our home star dying just as this planet dies now. The Council found a solution. Drain the life force from your human colony on Proxima 7 to fuel our resurrection. 2 million souls to save 20 billion. The mathematics were sound." Marcus felt ice in his veins that had nothing to do with Helion 7's climate. "You refused." "I refused," Seraphine confirmed, her light dimming. "I told them we would find another way, that we would not become monsters to survive. They called me weak, sentimental, corrupted by too much contact with lesser species. They stripped my crown, erased my name from our histories, and cast me into the void. How long ago? By your counting. 300 years. She raised a hand and Marcus watched in fascination as her fingers began to fade, becoming translucent. "I am dying, Marcus. Without my people's shared energy, without connection to another living consciousness, I cannot maintain form. Soon I will dissolve completely, becoming nothing but scattered light in an empty universe." "How do you know my name?" A sad smile touched her lips. "The bond shows me things. When you saw my light, when you chose to come to me despite every logical reason to stay safe, a thread formed between us. Thin as spider silk, but real. I can feel your loneliness, your fear, your desperate hope that someone, anyone, will find you before the cold takes you. Marcus swallowed hard, exposed, seen through. It should have terrified him, but instead he felt something uncomfortably close to relief. "What do you want from me?" "A choice," Serafini said simply. "I can offer you survival. This planet is dying, but I can take you from here, transport you to the nearest human outpost. In return, I ask only that you let me form a true bond with you. Not deep, not permanent, just enough connection to sustain me a while longer. Enough to keep me from fading into nothing. That's it? You save my life and all you want is company?" Her laugh was musical and heartbreaking. "All I want. As if connection is a small thing. As if being seen, truly seen, is not the most precious gift one being can give another." Marcus thought of Earth, of the crowded cities where he'd still felt invisible, of relationships that never quite touched the real him, always keeping a careful distance, of the gnawing certainty that he could disappear tomorrow and the universe wouldn't notice. And here stood this fallen queen, this exile from the stars, offering him a chance to matter to someone. What happens if I say yes? The bond will deepen. You will feel what I feel. See fragments of what I have seen. It may frighten you. It may change you. Seraphine's form flickered, becoming more transparent. But you will live, and I will not face the end alone. The temperature was dropping. Marcus's suit alarms began their warning chime. 5 minutes of heat left, maybe less. He looked at Seraphine, at this impossible being who had crossed the frozen waste to find him, and made his choice. "Yes," he said. "I'll help you." Her eyes widened, stars blooming in their depths. "You are certain?" "I'm certain I don't want to die alone on this ice ball," Marcus replied. "And I'm certain you deserve better than fading away with no one to remember you existed." Seraphine reached out, her hand hovering near his helmet. "Then let me in, Marcus. Open your mind and your heart, and I will show you wonders." Marcus's shelter felt different with Seraphine inside it. The cramped quarters that had been his prison for weeks now glowed with her presence. Shadows pushed back into corners, frost melting from the walls. She stood in the center of the room, studying the human artifacts scattered around with the curiosity of an anthropologist examining ancient ruins. "You may remove your helmet," she said, without turning. "I'm maintaining a thermal envelope. The cold cannot reach you here." He hesitated, then unsealed the helmet. Warm air kissed his face, impossibly warm, carrying a scent like ozone after lightning mixed with something floral he couldn't identify. "How are you doing this?" "The same way your kind generates heat through combustion, though my process is more efficient." She picked up a worn photograph pinned to the wall. Marcus and his sister on graduation day both grinning at the camera. "Who is this?" "Emma, my sister. She's back on Earth, working as a xenobotanist. You miss her." It wasn't a question, and Marcus didn't bother denying it. "Yeah, we used to talk every week before I took this assignment. Out here, communications are spotty at best." Seraphine replaced the photo carefully. "The bond will help with that." "How?" "Once we're fully connected, distance becomes less meaningful. You won't hear her thoughts, nothing so invasive, but you'll sense her presence. Know if she's well, if she's thinking of you. The same way you'll sense me." She turned to face him, and the weight of her gaze made his breath catch. "Are you ready?" His heart hammered. "What do I need to do?" "Simply stand still and let me touch you. The ritual is gentle, but what you see may not be." She approached slowly, giving him every chance to retreat. When he didn't, she raised both hands and placed them on either side of his face. The world exploded into light. Marcus saw stars being born. Vast clouds of hydrogen collapsing under their own gravity, igniting in fusion that would burn for billions of years. He saw planets forming from the debris, rocky worlds and gas giants, moons and asteroids dancing in orbital rhythms. He saw life emerging, simple cells that learned to eat sunlight, to swim, to think. He saw Seraphine's world, a planet orbiting a blue giant star, its continents covered in crystalline forests that sang in the stellar wind, cities that grew rather than were built, living architecture that breathed, and adapted. People who moved like liquid light, their forms shifting between solid and energy as naturally as humans blinked. He saw Seraphine herself, younger, crowned in flames of pure radiance, standing before an assembly of thousands. Her voice carried across the chamber, speaking of unity, of compassion, of the responsibility that came with power. The crowd listened with reverence, and Marcus felt her pride, her love for her people. Then the vision shifted, and he saw the blue giant star beginning to die. Not the slow fade of yellow stars like Earth's sun, but a catastrophic collapse. The ethereal's desperate scramble for solutions, their scientists presenting options, each more terrible than the last. And finally, the proposal that split their civilization. Harvest the life force of the human colony on Prax 7. Marcus felt Seraphine's horror as if it were his own. Saw her standing alone against the council, arguing that their survival couldn't be built on genocide. Watched as one by one her supporters fell silent, choosing species over principles. Witnessed her final speech, the one that cost her everything. "We are not gods," she had declared, "and we have no right to play at being death. If our time has come, let us face it with honor rather than live as murderers." The council's judgment came swift and merciless. Exile, eternal wandering. Her name struck from all records, her accomplishments attributed to others, her very existence deemed an error to be forgotten. Marcus felt the loneliness that followed. 300 years of drifting through space, watching civilizations rise and fall, unable to truly connect with anyone. The slow fading of her light, her essence draining away without the sustaining energy of her people. The growing certainty that she would simply cease to exist. Unmourned and unremembered, the visions ended, and Marcus found himself on his knees, tears streaming down his face. Seraphine knelt beside him, her hands still gentle on his cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I tried to shield you from the worst of it, but the bond demands truth. Don't apologize." His voice was rough. "You saved 2 million people. You lost everything and you saved them. Never knew. I made certain of that. Let them think the ethereals simply found another solution." She wiped his tears with fingers that felt like warm silk. "I did not want their gratitude. I wanted only to sleep with a clear conscience when my end finally came." Marcus looked at her, really looked, and saw past the alien beauty to the exhausted soul beneath. "You're not ending. Not if I can help it. The bond is incomplete. To fully sustain me, you must accept all of me. My past, my pain, my power. It will change you, Marcus. Your lifespan will extend to match mine. You'll begin to sense emotions from others, see threads of connection that bind all living things. You may even develop abilities you cannot imagine." Her eyes searched his. "I cannot ask this of you. It is too much. You're not asking. I'm offering." He took her hands in his, feeling the warmth pulse between them. "I've spent my whole life feeling like I was on the outside looking in. Like I was going through the motions, without ever really touching anything real. Then you appear out of nowhere, show me the universe through your eyes, and ask if I want to matter. The answer is yes, Seraphine. 1,000 times yes." Her composure cracked, and for a moment she looked unbearably vulnerable. "You don't know what you're accepting? Then show me. Complete the bond. Let me decide with full knowledge." Seraphine studied him for a long moment, then nodded. She stood, pulling him to his feet, and began to glow brighter. The light surrounded them both, warm and electric, and Marcus felt something opening in his chest, like a door he'd never known existed, swinging wide to reveal vistas of connection spreading out in all directions. He sensed Emma on Earth, worry for him a constant ache in her heart. Felt the other miners who'd been on his transport, some dead in the crash, some alive and hoping for rescue. Touched the edges of Seraphine's consciousness, vast and ancient and achingly lonely. The bond snapped into place like a key turning in a lock. Marcus gasped as power flooded through him, Seraphine's energy merging with his own. He felt his cells restructuring, his DNA rewriting itself to accommodate the changes. It should have hurt, should have been terrifying, but all he felt was a rightness. As if he'd been incomplete his whole life, and was only now becoming whole when the light faded. They stood together in the shelter, hands still clasped, breathing in sync. Marcus looked down at his arms and saw faint traces of luminescence beneath his skin, visible only when he concentrated. "How do you feel?" Seraphine asked. He laughed, giddy and overwhelmed. "Like I could run across this frozen planet without a suit. Like I could hear every heartbeat in the galaxy." He squeezed her hands. "Like I'm not alone anymore." Her smile was radiant, genuine joy lighting her features for the first time since he'd met her. "Neither am I." Outside, the twin suns finally set, plunging Hellion 7 into absolute darkness. But inside the shelter, two beings who had both been lost found warmth in each other's light. The attack came 3 hours after the bond completed. Marcus woke to Seraphine's hand over his mouth, her eyes wide with alarm. He felt her fear through their connection, sharp and immediate, and understood without words. They were no longer alone. Darkness pressed against the shelter's windows. But it wasn't the natural darkness of Hellion 7's night. This darkness moved, rippled, reached. Through the bond, Marcus sensed hunger, ancient and patient. The kind that had waited centuries for a meal and would gladly wait centuries more. "Void seekers," Seraphine whispered, removing her hand from his mouth. "Creatures born from the spaces between stars. They feed on light, on life force, on the energy of beings like me." Her glow had diminished to almost nothing, instinctively trying to hide. "They've hunted me for decades. The bond must have drawn them." Scratching sound came from above, claws on metal, testing for weakness. The shelter groaned under sudden pressure. Marcus rolled to his feet, pulse racing. "What do we do?" "Survive." Seraphine raised her hands, and barriers of light materialized at every window and door. Translucent shields that hummed with power. "The shields will hold for a time, but not forever. When they break, we fight." Through the bond, Marcus felt her drawing on his energy, their combined life force fueling the barriers. It should have exhausted him, but instead he felt stronger, as if their connection multiplied rather than divided their power. He moved to stand beside her, hands raised, though he had no idea what he was doing. "Follow my lead," Seraphine said. "The bond works both ways. What I know, you can access. What I can do, you can mirror." The first Void Seeker crashed through the north window, shattering Seraphine's shield in an explosion of darkness and failing light. Marcus got his first clear look at their attacker and wished he hadn't. It had a vaguely humanoid shape, but wrong, all wrong. Too many joints in the limbs, a head that split open to reveal rows of needle teeth, eyes that were just empty holes leaking shadow. Seraphine thrust her hand forward, and a spear of light shot from her palm, piercing the creature's chest. It shrieked, a sound like tearing metal, and dissolved into smoke. But 3 more poured through the broken window immediately after. Marcus acted on instinct, or maybe on knowledge bleeding through the bond from Seraphine. He felt energy gathering in his core, rushing up through his chest and down his arm. When he opened his palm, light erupted from it. Not as controlled as Seraphine's spear, but just as effective. The blast caught a Void Seeker mid-lip and sent it tumbling back into the darkness. "Good." Seraphine called over the chaos. "Don't think, just feel." They fought side by side, light against shadow, two beings who'd been alone, learning to move as one. Marcus discovered he could sense the Seekers' positions through the bond, feel them circling in the darkness outside. Seraphine showed him how to shape his energy into shields, weapons, even traps that caught the creatures and held them long enough to be destroyed, but more kept coming. For every Void Seeker they destroyed, 2 more appeared. The shelter's walls began to buckle. Metal shrieked as claws tore through reinforced plating. "Ow, we can't hold them," Marcus shouted, his arms shaking from the constant channeling of energy. "Then we run." Seraphine grabbed his hand, and suddenly they were moving faster than should be possible, her power carrying them both. She led him to the shelter's emergency exit, the one that opened onto the frozen wasteland. "Can you maintain body heat without a suit?" Marcus reached inside himself, found the warmth of the bond pulsing through his veins. "I think so." "Then trust yourself. Trust us." They burst out into Helion killing cold, and Marcus braced for agony that never came. His skin glowed faintly, the same way Seraphine's did, generating heat through some process he didn't understand, but didn't need to. The bond protected him, wrapped him in energy that defied the frozen air. The Void Seekers poured from the shelter behind them, a tide of darkness that swallowed the building whole. Marcus and Seraphine ran across the ice fields, hands clasped, their combined light cutting a path through the perpetual night. There. Seraphine pointed to a canyon ahead, walls of ice rising hundreds of feet on either side. The narrow space will force them into a bottleneck. We can make a stand there. They slid down the canyon's entrance, their feet barely touching the ice. Behind them, the Seekers followed, their shrieking, filling the air with discordant music. Marcus and Seraphine turned to face them at the canyon's narrowest point, backs pressed together, hands raised. "This is it," Seraphine said, and through the bond Marcus felt not fear but exhilaration. For the first time in 300 years, she wasn't facing danger alone. "Then let's make it count," Marcus replied. The Seekers charged, and light met darkness in a collision that shook the canyon walls. Marcus and Seraphine moved in perfect sync, their powers weaving together into patterns neither could create alone. Shields became weapons, became traps, became walls of pure radiance that the Seekers couldn't cross. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Marcus's body screamed for rest, but Seraphine's strength flowed into him, sustaining him. In return, his human stubbornness, his refusal to quit even when logic demanded surrender, bolstered her flagging energy. Finally, impossibly, the tide turned. The Void Seekers began to retreat, dissolving into shadows that fled back toward the stars. The last one paused at the canyon's entrance, its empty eyes fixed on Marcus and Seraphine, and he felt something like recognition pass between them. A message. A warning. This isn't over. Then it was gone. And silence fell over the frozen canyon. Marcus and Seraphine collapsed against each other, both glowing so brightly they lit the ice walls like twin suns. Their breathing synchronized, hearts beating in the same rhythm, connected so deeply that Marcus couldn't tell where his awareness ended and hers began. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her hands checking him for injuries. Exhausted but whole, he caught her hands, holding them still. "You." "The same." She looked up at him, and in her eyes he saw wonder mixed with something warmer, something that made his heart skip. "You fought like you'd been doing this for centuries." "How?" "The bond," Marcus said simply. "Everything you know. I can feel it. Every battle you've ever fought, every technique you've mastered, it's all there, waiting for me to reach for it." "That's not supposed to be possible." "The bond shares energy, emotion, not skill or memory. Maybe our bond is different." He brushed a strand of luminous hair from her face, the gesture intimate and natural. "Maybe because we're from different species, the rules don't apply the same way." Seraphine leaned into his touch, her eyes drifting closed. "Or maybe it's because we're more compatible than either of us imagined." They stayed like that, wrapped in each other's light, as Helion twin suns began to rise on the horizon. The planet was still dying, the Void Seekers were still hunting, and countless dangers lay ahead. But in that moment, Marcus and Seraphine had something neither had possessed in far too long. They had hope. And they had each other. The emissary arrived 2 days after the battle in the canyon. Marcus woke to find Seraphine standing at the shelter's rebuilt window, her entire body rigid with tension. Outside, a sphere of pure white light hovered above the ice, pulsing with a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat. "What is that?" Marcus asked, moving to stand beside her. "My people." Her voice was flat, carefully controlled. "They've found me." As if in response to her words, the sphere descended, touching down on the frozen ground without melting so much as a single ice crystal. It split open like a flower, and from within emerged a figure that made Seraphine look almost human by comparison. The ethereal stood 8 feet tall, its form constantly shifting between solid and energy, male and female, young and ancient. Its skin held every color of the spectrum simultaneously, and when it moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around it. Power radiated from it in waves that made Marcus's bones ache. "Seraphine," the being said, its voice resonating in frequencies that shouldn't exist. "The Council has debated your fate. We offer reinstatement." Through the bond, Marcus felt Seraphine's shock, her disbelief, her fragile hope. "After 3 centuries of exile, you suddenly want me back?" "Circumstances have changed." The emissary gestured and holographic images materialized in the air between them. Star systems dying, planets going dark, entire civilizations winking out of existence. The great dimming accelerates. Our temporary solution is failing. We need your wisdom, your leadership. The people cry out for their true queen. Yes. Seraphine's hands clenched. And the human colony? The 2 million souls you wanted to sacrifice? Are no longer relevant to the solution we've developed? The emissary's form rippled. "We discovered a method to harvest energy from dying stars themselves. A process you might have helped us perfect 300 years ago had you not abandoned your people." The words struck like physical blows. Marcus felt Seraphine flinch, felt guilt and anger warring inside her. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. The emissary's attention fixed on him for the first time. The human, the source of the bond's signature that led us here. It circled Marcus slowly, studying him like a scientist examining a specimen. "Fascinating. You've merged your essence with a human. I didn't think such compatibility was possible." "Neither did I," Seraphine said quietly. "Then the choice is simple." The emissary returned to stand before them. "Sever the bond. Return to your people. Reclaim your throne and help save 20 billion lives. Or remain here with your human and watch as our species fades into extinction." Marcus's chest tightened. Through the bond, he felt Seraphine's soul tearing in half. Her people, her responsibility, everything she'd ever been. Pulling against the connection they'd formed, the belonging she'd found in his presence. "If she severs the bond, what happens to me?" Marcus asked. The emissary's expression didn't change. "You would die. The bond has restructured your biology to accommodate ethereal energy. Remove that energy, and your systems would collapse within hours." "Painfully, I'm told, though I have no direct experience with human suffering." "Of course you don't," Marcus said bitterly. "There must be another way," Seraphine insisted. "I can help from here. Send me the data, the calculations. I'll work on your star harvesting process remotely." "Possible. The Council demands your physical presence, your full attention. No distractions." The emissary looked pointedly at Marcus. "No divided loyalties." Seraphine pulled her hand from Marcus's, wrapping her arms around herself. He felt her anguish through the bond. Felt her mentally reviewing her options, calculating probabilities, trying to find a solution that didn't require choosing between her people and the man she'd grown to care for. "How long do I have to decide?" she asked. "One of your Earth days. Then we depart, with or without you." The emissary dissolved back into light, returning to the waiting sphere. It rose into the sky and vanished among the stars, leaving Marcus and Seraphine alone in the shelter's oppressive silence. "You have to go," Marcus said finally. Seraphine turned on him, eyes blazing. Don't make this easier." "I'm not trying to make it easier. I'm trying to be realistic. 20 billion lives, Seraphine. You can't sacrifice your entire species for one human you've known for less than a week. You're not just one human. You're my bond, my anchor, my anchor." She stopped, as if afraid to finish the sentence. Marcus stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. "Say it." "My heart," she whispered. "Somewhere in these few days, you became my heart, and they're asking me to cut it out and walk away as if that's not a death of its own." He kissed her then, pouring everything he couldn't say into the gesture. She responded fiercely, desperately, and through the bond their emotions crashed together. Love and fear and grief becoming indistinguishable. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. "I have an idea, probably a terrible one, but an idea nonetheless. Tell me, what if I came with you? Seraphine jerked back. To the ethereal home system? Marcus, you'd be the only human in a civilization of beings who see your kind as barely sentient. The Council barely tolerates bonded pairs, and those are always between ethereals. They'd never accept a human consort to their queen. Then we make them accept it. He grabbed her hands, holding tight. You saved Earth's colony when it would have been easier to let them die. You chose mercy over survival, compassion over calculation. That's the kind of queen your people need right now, not someone who will make the easy choices. And if I'm there, if our bond proves that connection between species is possible, maybe we can broker an alliance. Earth has resources, technology. We could help each other. The Council will never agree, so we don't ask permission. We present it as fact. You're their queen, aren't you? Start acting like it. Slow smile spread across Seraphine's face, the first real smile he'd seen since the emissary arrived. You're suggesting I stage a coup? Suggesting you remind them who you are? The queen who refused to build salvation on corpses? The exile who survived 3 centuries of loneliness because she wouldn't compromise her principles? They need you, Seraphine, not some version of you that's willing to abandon the people who matter. Through the bond, he felt her resolve crystallizing, felt her drawing strength from his certainty. She straightened, and for a moment he saw the queen she'd once been. Crowned in flames of pure radiance, commanding respect from thousands. If we do this, she said slowly, there's no going back. You'll be leaving Earth, possibly forever. Your sister, your home, everything you've ever known. Marcus thought of Emma, of the communication he'd send explaining his choice. She'd understand. She'd always told him to find something worth fighting for. I found something worth more than home. I found you. Seraphine pulled him into another kiss, this one soft and full of promise. When they parted, her eyes glowed with determination. Then we'll do it together. We'll save my people, forge an alliance with yours, and prove that love doesn't recognize species boundaries. She laughed, giddy with the audacity of their plan. We're either about to change the fate of 2 civilizations or get ourselves killed spectacularly. I'm betting on the first option, Marcus said, threading his fingers through hers. After all, we've already survived void seekers and frozen planets. How hard can galactic politics be? Outside, the twin suns climbed higher, painting the ice in shades of pink and gold. Tomorrow, they would leave Helion 7 behind. Tomorrow, they would face the Ethereal Council and demand acceptance on their own terms. But tonight, they had each other, and that was enough. The Ethereal Council chamber existed in a space between dimensions, a vast sphere where physics bent to accommodate beings of pure energy. Marcus floated beside Seraphine, his human form looking impossibly small against. The assembled might of 20 billion souls compressed into their greatest representatives. 12 council members surrounded them, each radiating power that made his teeth ache. This is unprecedented, the High Chancellor declared, its form shifting through a spectrum of aggressive reds and oranges. A human in the sacred chamber. A bonded pair demanding audience. You overstep, Seraphine. I claim what is mine by right, Seraphine replied, her voice carrying the weight of authority she'd spent 3 centuries learning to wield differently. You exiled me for choosing mercy? Now you beg my return because your calculations failed. I come on my terms, or not at all. Through the bond, Marcus felt her drawing on his strength, his stubbornness, his very human refusal to be intimidated by beings who could reshape matter with a thought. He squeezed her hand, pouring confidence through their connection. Your terms include bringing this creature into our highest councils? Another member spat. Humans are barely evolved primates. They've barely mastered their own star system. This human saved my life, Seraphine said calmly. This human fought void seekers at my side. This human chose to bind his fate to mine, knowing it might kill him. He has more courage in his fragile organic body than most of you have shown in 3 centuries of comfortable existence. Marcus stepped forward, even though every instinct screamed to hide behind Seraphine. With respect, High Chancellor, I'm not here to join your council. I'm here to propose an alliance between our species. Ripples of confusion passed through the assembled ethereals. Alliance? What could humans possibly offer us? Raw materials, for one thing. Marcus pulled up the data files he'd been studying during their journey. Your species has transcended physical form, which means you've lost the ability to efficiently harvest physical resources. But you need those resources to build the star harvesters that will save your civilization. Earth's mining corporations can extract and process materials from thousands of asteroids, dead planets, even stellar debris. We have the infrastructure you need. You could simply take what we require, the Chancellor said dismissively. You could, Marcus agreed, and prove you're exactly the monsters Seraphine refused to let you become 300 years ago. Or you can trade fairly, establish diplomatic relations, and show that the ethereals are capable of cooperation rather than conquest.